The clatter of an iron skillet hitting the dusty wooden floor echoed through the kitchen of the Thornhill Ranch house, followed by the sharp crack of Karina Summers' cheek as Mrs. Thornhill's hand struck her face. It was the third time this week, and it was only Tuesday in the scorching summer of 1878. "Worthless girl! You call that breakfast?" Mrs. Thornhill shrieked, her pinched face reddening beneath her tight gray bun. "My husband works from dawn till dusk, and this is what you serve him?" Karina knelt to retrieve the skillet, her long auburn hair falling forward to hide the fresh mark on her face. At 22, she'd spent the last 5 years as a servant for the Thornhills, ever since her parents died of fever, leaving her with nothing but debts. The Thornhills had taken her in, but their charity came with a steep price: endless work and constant belittlement. "I'm sorry, madam," Karina murmured, her green eyes fixed on the floor. "I'll make a fresh batch right away." Mr. Thornhill sat at the table, newspaper in hand, seemingly deaf to his wife's outburst. He hadn't looked up once during the entire exchange. "See that you do," Mrs. Thornhill snapped, "and clean this mess. There's a rancher coming today about buying some cattle. I won't have him thinking we live like savages." After preparing a new breakfast that barely earned a grunt of acknowledgement from Mr. Thornhill, Karina slipped outside to the water pump. She dampened her handkerchief and pressed it against her stinging cheek, looking out across the vast Wyoming landscape. The morning sun gilded the distant mountains, painting them in shades of gold and amber. Such beauty in a place that held her captive. She sighed, returning to her chores: laundry, cleaning, cooking, tending the garden, all tasks she'd been performing since she was 17. The Thornhills never paid her beyond room and board, claiming they were still settling her parents' debts. Karina suspected those debts had been paid many times over, but she had nowhere else to go. By midday, the summer heat was oppressive. Karina was hanging sheets on the line when she heard the approach of hoofbeats. Shielding her eyes, she watched as a rider approached, tall in the saddle, broad-shouldered, his face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. Nathan Vance had been riding for 3 days straight, the Wyoming dust coating his clothes and skin. At 28, he'd spent most of his adult life working cattle, building a reputation as one of the finest horsemen and cattle drivers in the territory. 2 years ago, he'd finally saved enough to buy his own small spread, and now he was looking to expand his herd. Thornhill Ranch was known for its quality cattle, and Nathan had arranged to purchase 10 head. As he approached the farmhouse, he noticed a young woman hanging laundry, her movements graceful despite the obvious weariness in her stance. The wind caught her hair, a rich auburn that gleamed copper in the sunlight. When she looked up, Nathan felt an unexpected jolt. Even from a distance, he could see she was beautiful, but something else caught his attention: a reddened mark on her cheek that looked suspiciously like a handprint. He dismounted near the fence, tipping his hat. "Afternoon, miss. I'm looking for Mr. Thornhill." Karina straightened, wiping her hands on her apron. "He's in the barn, sir. I can fetch him for you." "Much obliged," Nathan replied, studying her more carefully. Her dress was plain and worn, her hands red from work, but she carried herself with quiet dignity. "You all right, miss? If you don't mind my saying, looks like you've had some trouble." Karina's hand flew to her cheek, embarrassment flooding her face. "It's nothing, sir. Just clumsy with the cookware this morning." The lie tasted bitter in her mouth. Nathan's blue eyes narrowed slightly, but he nodded. "Name's Nathan Vance. I've come about some cattle." "I'll get Mr. Thornhill right away, Mr. Vance." She hurried toward the barn, feeling his gaze on her back. When she returned with Mr. Thornhill, Nathan tipped his hat again but said nothing more to her. The two men walked off toward the pasture, and Karina returned to her laundry, wondering at the strange feeling the cowboy's concerned look had stirred within her. That evening, Mrs. Thornhill ordered Karina to serve dinner to her husband and their guest. Nathan Vance had been invited to stay the night before taking the cattle in the morning. Karina moved quietly around the dining room, filling glasses and bringing platters of food. "Fine spread, Mrs. Thornhill," Nathan said politely, though his eyes occasionally drifted to Karina. "Our girl is good for something at least," Mrs. Thornhill replied with a thin smile, "though she's hardly worth her keep most days." Karina's face burned as she placed the last dish on the table. "I found her quite helpful earlier," Nathan commented, his voice casual but firm. "Seems like a hard-working young woman." Mr. Thornhill grunted. "Been with us 5 years now. Took her in after her folks died owing us money. Figured she could work it off." 5 years? Nathan asked, his eyebrows rising. "Must have been quite a debt." "These things add up," Mrs. Thornhill said dismissively. "Room, board, the clothes on her back. She's fortunate we didn't turn her out." Nathan's jaw tightened slightly, but he said nothing more on the subject. Throughout dinner, Karina felt his eyes on her whenever she entered the room, but she kept her gaze lowered, afraid of drawing Mrs. Thornhill's ire. Later, after the Thornhills had retired, Karina was finishing the dishes when a floorboard creaked behind her. She turned to find Nathan standing in the kitchen doorway. "Didn't mean to startle you," he said. "Thought you might like some help." Karina blinked in surprise. "That's not necessary, Mr. Vance. It's my job." "Nathan," he corrected, rolling up his sleeves and moving to stand beside her at the wash basin. "And I reckon I've washed my share of dishes in my time." They worked in silence for a few moments, his large hands carefully handling the delicate china. "How long have they been hitting you?" he asked quietly, not looking at her. Karina nearly dropped the plate she was drying. "I told you I was clumsy with the cookware." "Yes, I heard." Nathan turned to face her. "I've seen that kind of clumsiness before, Miss Summers. My mother had the same problem with my father until I was big enough to stop it." Tears pricked at Karina's eyes, but she blinked them away. "It doesn't matter. I have nowhere else to go." "Everyone has somewhere else to go," Nathan said. "They just need the courage to find it." Before she could respond, he handed her the last dish and dried his hands. "Thank you for your help with dinner. I best turn in. Long day tomorrow." Karina watched him leave, an unfamiliar feeling taking root in her chest, something dangerously close to hope. The next morning, Karina rose before dawn as usual to prepare breakfast. To her surprise, Nathan was already in the kitchen, coffee brewing on the stove. "Early riser," she commented, tying her apron. "Cattle don't wait for the sun," he replied with a small smile. "And I wanted a word before the Thornhills are up." Karina paused, her heart quickening. "About what?" "I've been thinking about your situation." Nathan leaned against the counter, his expression serious. "It ain't right what they're doing. 5 years is more than enough to work off any debt." "Mr. Vance," "Nathan," he corrected again. "Nathan," she conceded. "I appreciate your concern, but there's nothing to be done. I have no money, no family, nowhere to go." "That's what I wanted to talk about." He straightened, looking slightly uncomfortable. "I need help at my ranch. The small but growing. Could use someone to keep house, cook meals. I'd pay fair wages." Karina stared at him, disbelieving. "You're offering me a job? You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said simply. "I know you work hard. I know you don't deserve what's happening here. The rest, well, we can figure that out along the way." Her mind raced. The Thornhills would never allow it. They'd say I still owe them. Nathan's expression hardened. "I've made some inquiries in town. Your parents' debt to them was $300. At a fair wage for your work, you'd have paid that off in less than a year." Karina felt dizzy. All these years, she'd believed she was working toward freedom. "How do I know I can trust you?" she whispered. Nathan's blue eyes held hers steadily. "You don't. But I give you my word as a man that you'll be treated with respect. You'll have your own room with a lock on the door, fair pay, and the freedom to leave any time you choose." Before she could respond, footsteps sounded on the stairs. Nathan moved away, taking his coffee to the table as if they'd never spoken. Throughout breakfast, Karina's mind whirled with possibilities. Freedom, respect, fair pay. Could she really trust this stranger? But then, could her situation possibly be worse than it already was? After breakfast, Mr. Thornhill and Nathan went to sort the cattle Nathan had purchased. Karina cleaned the kitchen, her decision crystallizing with each dish she washed. When Mrs. Thornhill left to visit a neighbor, Karina rushed upstairs and packed her few belongings into a small bundle. By the time the men returned, she was waiting on the porch, her bundle hidden behind a post. She watched as Nathan counted out money to Mr. Thornhill, their business apparently concluded. "Looks like we're finished here," Mr. Thornhill said, pocketing the money. "Girl will fix you some lunch before you head out with the cattle." Nathan glanced at Karina, then back to Thornhill. "Actually, there's one more matter to discuss. I'd like to hire Miss Summers to work at my ranch." Thornhill's bushy eyebrows shot up. "What? That's ridiculous. She's not for hire." "Every person has the right to seek employment where they choose," Nathan said calmly. "And I'm offering fair wages." "She's indebted to us," Thornhill sputtered. "Her parents owed you $300. Nathan finished. "I checked the county records. She's more than worked that off. Any court would agree." Thornhill's face darkened. "Now see here, Vance. You can't come onto my property and try to steal my servant." "I'm not stealing anything," Nathan replied, his voice still even but with steel underneath. "I'm offering employment to a free woman. Unless you're suggesting Miss Summers is not free." Thornhill glanced nervously toward the road, clearly concerned about appearances. "She's free, of course, but she has obligations. And my wife depends on her. Then I suggest you hire someone else and pay them properly." Nathan turned to Karina. "Miss Summers, would you like to work at my ranch for fair wages, with proper treatment?" Karina felt Mr. Thornhill's glare, but she stood straighter, finding courage she didn't know she possessed. "Yes, Mr. Vance, I would." "This is outrageous," Thornhill spluttered. "My wife will never—" "Your wife," Nathan interrupted, "might be interested to know I've spoken with Sheriff Miller about certain concerns, about marks that don't come from cookware." Thornhill paled visibly. "Are you threatening me, Vance?" "Just stating facts," Nathan replied. "Miss Summers is leaving with me today, with her full wages from you for the past 5 years, or I'll be having a longer conversation with the sheriff." The silence stretched taut between them. Finally, Thornhill spat. "Take her then. Worthless servant girl anyway. But she gets nothing from me." Nathan's hand moved to his gun belt, not drawing but making his point. "I think you misheard me, Thornhill." 10 minutes later, Karina stood in disbelief as Mr. Thornhill counted out money, not the full amount Nathan had calculated she was owed, but more money than she'd ever possessed. When he finished, he stormed back into the house without another word. "Ready?" Nathan asked, holding the reins of his horse and the lead rope for the small herd of cattle. Karina looked at the house that had been her prison for 5 years, then at the man who had just set her free. "Yes," she said simply, clutching her bundle. Nathan helped her onto his horse, then mounted behind her. As they rode away, Karina felt a strange mixture of terror and exhilaration. She was free, but she was also heading into the unknown with a man she barely knew. "You didn't have to do that," she said as the Thornhill Ranch disappeared behind them. "Yes, I did," Nathan replied quietly. No one deserves to be treated that way. They rode in silence for a while, the cattle plodding along ahead of them. What made you do it? Karina finally asked. You could have just bought your cattle and left. Nathan was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. My mother, he finally said. She lived like you did, afraid and trapped, until the day my father killed her with his fists. I was 15, too late to save her, but I swore I'd never stand by again if I saw someone in the same situation. Karina's heart ached for him. I'm sorry. Don't be. Just be ready to work hard. My place isn't fancy, and I meant what I said. It's a job, not charity. I understand, she said, straightening her shoulders. And I'm not afraid of hard work. Nathan's ranch was indeed small compared to the Thornhills, but Karina found it instantly appealing. The main house was modest but solid, with a wide porch and large windows. Several outbuildings dotted the property, and a small herd of cattle grazed in the distance. It's not much, Nathan said as he helped her down from the horse. But it's mine, free and clear. It's wonderful, Karina replied honestly. The inside of the house was sparsely furnished but clean. Nathan showed her to a small bedroom with a real bed, not the cot she'd used at the Thornhills, and a door with a lock, just as he'd promised. Get settled in, he said. I need to get these cattle situated. Kitchen stocked if you want to fix something to eat. That first week was an adjustment for both of them. Karina threw herself into her new duties, cooking, cleaning, and learning her way around the ranch. Nathan was often busy with the cattle and horses, but in the evenings, they would share meals and conversation. Unlike the Thornhills, Nathan treated her with respect, asking her opinion on things, thanking her for her work, and never raising his voice. Gradually, Karina began to relax, the constant tension she'd carried for years slowly easing. One evening, about 2 weeks after her arrival, Nathan returned from town with supplies and a small package wrapped in brown paper. What's this? Karina asked when he handed it to her. Open it and see, he replied, a hint of nervousness in his usually confident demeanor. Inside, Karina found a beautiful blue cotton dress, simple, but far nicer than anything she'd worn in years. I noticed your clothes are pretty worn, Nathan explained. Thought you might like something new. The lady at the store helped pick the size. If it doesn't fit, we can exchange it. Tears welled in Karina's eyes. It's beautiful. Thank you. Nathan looked embarrassed. It's just practical. You needed clothes. But they both knew it was more than that. The next day, Karina wore the new dress while hanging laundry. The fabric was soft against her skin, the color matching the clear Wyoming sky. She was humming to herself when she heard Nathan approach. Suits you, he said, his eyes appreciative. Blue's your color. Karina felt herself blush. Thank you again. It's the nicest thing anyone's given me in a long time. Nathan leaned against the fence post. I've been meaning to ask, what would you like to do? In the future, do. Karina looked confused. With your life. You're free now with money of your own. You could go anywhere, do anything. I just wondered if you had plans. The question caught her off guard. For so long, survival had been her only goal. I never thought much beyond getting through each day, she admitted. I suppose I'd like to have my own home someday. Maybe a small business. A bakery, perhaps. I've always loved baking. Nathan nodded thoughtfully. That's a fine goal. The town's growing. Could use a good bakery. What about you? Karina asked, curious. What are your dreams? This, he said, gesturing to the ranch. Making it bigger, better. Maybe raising a family someday. He glanced at her, then quickly away. If I find the right woman. An unexpected warmth spread through Karina's chest. You'd make a good father, she said softly. Their eyes met, and something passed between them, something neither was ready to name. As summer turned to fall, their relationship shifted subtly. Nathan began teaching Karina to ride, his hands gentle as he helped her mount and dismount. She taught him to make proper biscuits, laughing at his flour-covered attempts. They spent evenings on the porch, watching the sunset and talking about everything and nothing. Karina knew she was falling in love with him. She tried to fight it. He was her employer. After all, but his kindness, his strength, and his gentle humor had worked their way into her heart. One crisp October day, Nathan announced he needed to move some cattle to the north pasture before winter set in. "It'll take a couple of days," he explained over breakfast. "I could use some help if you're willing." Karina agreed eagerly, excited for the adventure. They packed supplies, and Nathan showed her how to roll a proper bedroll. The work was hard but exhilarating. Karina had never felt so alive as she did riding alongside Nathan, helping to guide the small herd through the golden autumn landscape. When evening fell, they made camp beside a creek, and Nathan built a fire while Karina prepared a simple meal. Under the vast canopy of stars, they sat close to the fire, their shoulders nearly touching. "You're a natural on horseback," Nathan said, his face illuminated by the dancing flames. "Like you were born to it." Karina smiled. "I had a good teacher." "Been thinking," Nathan said after a comfortable silence. "Winter's coming. Town's too far for you to open that bakery and still work at the ranch. Maybe come spring, if that's still what you want, we could build you a small place closer to town." Karina turned to him, surprised. "You'd do that for me?" Nathan met her gaze, his eyes reflecting the firelight. "I'd do a lot of things for you, Karina." Her heart hammered in her chest. "Nathan, but whatever she was about to say was cut off by the distant howl of a wolf. Their horses nickered nervously, and Nathan rose to check on them. The moment passed, but something had changed between them. That night, lying in her bedroll a few feet from Nathan's, Karina couldn't sleep, her mind replaying his words and the look in his eyes. The next day brought unexpected trouble. As they were moving the cattle through a narrow pass, a rattlesnake spooked Nathan's horse. The animal reared, throwing Nathan backward. He hit the ground hard, and Karina watched in horror as he rolled dangerously close to the edge of a steep embankment. She dismounted quickly, rushing to where he lay groaning. "Don't move," she ordered, checking him for injuries. "You might have broken something." Nathan winced. "Just knocked the wind out of me, and maybe bruised some ribs." Relief flooded through her. "You scared me half to death." Nathan looked up at her, his face serious despite the pain. "Would you have missed me if I'd gone over that edge?" "Don't be ridiculous," she said, helping him sit up. "Of course I would." "How much?" he pressed, his eyes never leaving hers. Karina's hands stilled on his arm. "More than I should," she admitted quietly. Nathan reached up, his hand gently cupping her cheek. "I've been falling in love with you since the day we met," he confessed. "Tried not to. Didn't want you to think I'd helped you just to—" He broke off, shaking his head. "I know," Karina whispered. "I've been fighting it too. You gave me a job, a home. I didn't want to ruin that." "You could never ruin anything," Nathan said, his thumb gently caressing her cheek. "You've made everything better. My home, my life, everything." Slowly, giving her time to pull away, he leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle, questioning, and when Karina responded, wrapping her arms around his neck, Nathan deepened it, pulling her closer despite his injured ribs. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "I love you, Karina Summers. I think I have since I saw you hanging laundry with a bruise on your cheek and fire in your eyes." Tears of happiness spilled down Karina's cheeks. "I love you too. So much it terrifies me." Don't be scared, Nathan said, brushing away her tears. I'll never hurt you, never raise my voice or my hand to you. I swear it. I know, she said, and she did. In her heart, she knew this man was different from any she'd ever known. They finished moving the cattle, though Karina insisted Nathan ride more carefully with his bruised ribs. That night, they sat closer by the fire, Nathan's arm around her shoulders, Karina's head resting against him. What happens now? She asked softly. Nathan was quiet for a moment. That depends on you. I know what I want, but I won't rush you. You've just found your freedom. Might be you want to enjoy it a while. Karina turned to face him. My freedom means I can choose. And I choose you, Nathan Vance. I always will. His smile in the firelight made her heart skip. In that case, I have something to ask you. To Karina's surprise, Nathan removed his cowboy hat, the worn brown Stetson he was rarely without. With a solemnity that brought fresh tears to her eyes, he placed it gently in her hands. Where I come from, he said, his voice rough with emotion. When a man puts his hat in a woman's hands, it means he's offering her everything he is. His protection, his name, his heart. He took a deep breath. Karina Summers, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Karina looked down at the hat in her hands, then back at the man who had rescued her from a life of servitude and shown her what love truly meant. Yes, she whispered, clutching his hat to her heart. Yes, Nathan, I will marry you. Their return to the ranch the next day was filled with plans and dreams. Nathan insisted they ride into town immediately to see the preacher and set a date. No sense waiting, he said. Unless you want a big wedding? Karina shook her head. I just want you. As soon as possible. They were married 2 weeks later in the small church in town, with only a few of Nathan's rancher friends in attendance. Karina wore her blue dress, the first gift Nathan had given her, and carried wildflowers she'd gathered that morning. Nathan wore his best shirt and a new hat, since his old one now hung proudly in their bedroom. The preacher beamed as he pronounced them husband and wife. What God has joined together, let no man put asunder. As they rode back to their ranch now, Karina couldn't stop smiling. From worthless servant to beloved wife in just a few short months. It seemed impossible. Happy, Mrs. Vance? Nathan asked, his arms secure around her waist as they shared his horse. Happier than I ever thought possible, she replied, leaning back against his chest. That winter was the happiest of Karina's life. She and Nathan settled into married life with surprising ease. They worked side by side during the day and held each other close through the long, cold nights. Nathan taught her to shoot, insisting she know how to protect herself if ever needed. Karina filled their home with warmth and love, baking bread that made Nathan declare he'd never need another bakery as long as he lived. When spring arrived, Nathan surprised her with a trip to town, where he showed her a small storefront for rent. For your bakery, he explained, watching her face light up, if you still want it. But it's so far from the ranch, Karina protested, even as she peered excitedly through the windows. About that, Nathan said, taking her hand. Bought the property behind it. Thought we might build a small house. Split our time between town and the ranch. Hire some help for the cattle. Karina threw her arms around him. You've thought of everything. Just want you to be happy, he said, holding her close. Want to give you everything those Thornhills took away. By summer, Karina's bakery was open 3 days a week, quickly becoming famous for having the best pies and bread in the county. She and Nathan divided their time between their small town house and the ranch, creating a life that fulfilled both their dreams. One warm evening, as they sat on the porch of the ranch house watching the sunset, Karina took Nathan's hand and placed it gently on her stomach. I have news, she said softly, watching his face. Nathan's eyes widened. Are you? Karina nodded, her smile radiant. The doctor confirmed it yesterday. We're going to have a baby. Nathan whooped with joy, lifting her gently and spinning her around. A baby! Our baby! He set her down carefully, his hands framing her face. I love you, Karina Vance, more than life itself. And I love you, she replied, tears of happiness streaming down her face. You gave me more than freedom that day you put your hat in my hands. You gave me a future, a home, a family. 9 months later, they welcomed their daughter, Hope, into the world, a perfect blend of her parents with Karina's auburn hair and Nathan's blue eyes. As Nathan held his daughter for the first time, he looked at his wife with wonder. Thank you, he whispered, for our daughter, for loving me, for everything. Karina smiled tiredly from the bed. We've come a long way from that day at the Thornhills. And we've got a lifetime ahead of us, Nathan replied, sitting beside her and placing their daughter in her arms. As the years passed, their family and their businesses grew. Karina's bakery became a town institution, and Nathan's ranch prospered. They added 2 more children, a boy and another girl, to their family, raising them with love and the values they both held dear: hard work, honesty, and kindness. Sometimes, Karina would take out Nathan's old hat, the one he'd placed in her hands that night by the campfire, and remember how far she'd come from the frightened servant girl at Thornhill Ranch. From worthless servant to cherished wife, mother, and successful businesswoman. And every anniversary, Nathan would place his current hat in her hands and ask again, Karina Vance, will you continue to be my wife? And every year, her answer was the same: for all the days of my life. In a land where life was often harsh and unforgiving, they had found in each other a love that was gentle, strong, and enduring, a love that had transformed them both and created a legacy of kindness that would outlast them for generations to come.